Can you imagine having the ability to body swap? To trade anatomy with another person? To know what it's like to live inside their flesh? Well, I went through the most mind-bending experience when I swapped bodies with my boyfriend. Or one of my boyfriends, I should say. My name is Andrea. I'm 21, and I've never really been the kind of girl that enjoyed the company of just one gentleman. Before you get all judgy, you should know that I never said I was exclusive with Shane. Shane, that's the hunk I was just about to trade skin with. I told him that I took my time in relationships. A few months later, Shane started acting like he was too good for me. I ended up getting better acquainted with Pierce, this super hot guy I followed on social media. But back to Shane. We didn't have a great "how did you meet" story. I was leaving our applied sciences class one day, and he followed me out and said I couldn't steal his idea. For the project, he said, we were studying the nanoscience of free will, and I had chosen this body swapping idea for my research project, and now Shane was saying it was his. He was really cute, and when he brought up the dilemma to our professor, I suggested that we work together. It was all part of my plan to get Shane alone so I could work my magic. He was supposed to come by my place one night after he got off of work from some job for a midnight study session, and I made sure to wear my cutest outfit and set the mood just right. We were looking at this model of neural signaling, and I let myself get a little too close. We locked lips that night, and Shane was under my spell by morning. The next time we met up, he bought me flowers and treated me to a great dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. He was always texting me sweet nothings, and he'd call me before he went to sleep just to hear my voice. I was starting to think maybe I was in love, but that roller coaster went downhill fast. It wasn't even a month into our relationship, and he was taking me through the fast food drive-thru, and his sweet nothings were becoming few and far between. Let's just say I wasn't feeling the love. The worst of it was when he canceled one of our dates. It was like he just didn't care, and we got into a big fight over it. I spent more time on social media. I could find plenty of guys to give me attention. And if Shane wanted my total commitment, maybe he needed to earn it. We met up for a study session, and we dug into the research. The idea of switching bodies seemed impossible. Yet there were leading scientists talking about a future where people live forever in artificial bodies. And to think that people could trade bodies was even freakier. Shane showed me a post on Craigslist, a request for volunteers to experience an actual body swap. He immediately started drafting an email to this anonymous wacko, and not even 10 minutes later, Shane got a call. It was some self-proclaimed scientist calling herself Natasha. She told us that she just received funding to pay volunteers, and she wanted to meet with us immediately to make history. Shane scheduled a time for later in the week. He wanted to at least hear her out, but I was feeling overwhelmed. I didn't want to make history. I just wanted to pass my science class. I think what bothered me the most was that Shane seemed more interested in the project than me. He was never around. He barely texted me, and I never got flowers from him anymore. Meanwhile, Pierce asked me out. He picked me up in a sports car and wore nice clothes. It seemed like there was a gift or a compliment around every corner, and I guess he just made me feel special. I called Shane to see if we were going out on Friday as usual, but he reminded me that we had our meeting with that crazy Natasha scientist, and he said it would be like a study date. I got upset, and we started arguing about how he never gave me any attention. He tried to explain himself, but he didn't really have a point, and I just got angrier and hung up on him. I was feeling pretty low, but my spirits were lifted the minute Pierce surprised me with lunch. He said he wanted to take me on a cruise and shower me with gifts. We'd be leaving in a few days. I was so excited that I almost started packing up that night. But then Shane was calling me and asking me if I was ready to go. I had almost forgotten about that crazy Craigslist kook we were supposed to be interviewing. He picked me up and we drove to these futuristic offices. Natasha was there to greet us. She was poised and polished, not crazy. And when she spoke about the science behind scanning and replicating minds, she made it sound plausible. even normal. "Imagine the possibilities," she said. "For years, people never knew what it was like to walk in other shoes, and now we have that science." I thought about how Shane would feel if he knew what it was like to be ignored by someone. I was also curious what it might be like to live in his body. Shane was interested in the money, which was weird, and I guess we both had our own reasons to volunteer. It was probably the most spontaneous thing I'd ever done. We were each given a pill, and it wasn't long before my body was shutting down. In the night, our brains were copied and uploaded onto a home server. It worked like a transponder signal that overshadowed our conscious minds. I woke up in Shane's body, in Shane's bed, at Shane's house, and it was the trippiest thing ever. I could feel his hair and his skin. I stared at myself in the mirror forever. I looked so different, but inside, it was me. I walked like me and I thought like me. I tried to call my own phone to talk to Shane, who would be waking up in my bed, but the cell service was shut off. My parents usually paid my bill, so this kind of thing had never really happened. Apparently, Shane owed the phone service money. I stepped out of his room, not sure what to expect. And immediately, these children started asking for breakfast. Then Shane's mom was asking me for money for the electricity bill, and I didn't really know what to say. She was lying on the couch, coughing through her words. She reminded me to make breakfast and feed my siblings before I go. I gave Shane's mom whatever cash I found in Shane's wallet, and I emptied his bank account, getting the phone turned back on. I barely had time to think about my new body because my new circumstances were crazy. As soon as the phone got turned back on, I had a ton of messages from Shane. But I also had messages from a job saying I was late. I worked at a lumberyard until the afternoon, and then I went to wait tables at this restaurant in the evening. I felt like I was being yanked around the whole day. I was about to quit both jobs, but I didn't want to ruin Shane's life in just one day. When I got home, everyone was asleep, and I finally had a chance to breathe. I looked around Shane's room, and I found something that completely warmed my heart. On his desktop, he had a picture of us together. I found unfinished love notes, and apparently he had even written a song for me. The whole day was gone before I had a chance to think about relationships. Living in a new body wasn't that strange once you got used to a few, differences. But it was the lifestyle change that threw me. I took a look at his bank account and I realized that all the dinners and dates with me were really taking a toll on his wallet. Here I was thinking maybe Shane had another girl on the side, and that's why he was ignoring me. But not so. I drove over to my old apartment to talk to him. And it was super weird seeing my body walk around like a guy. But I was so in love with Shane at that minute that I just wanted to be with him, and I gave him the steamiest kiss. But he pulled away. "It feels weird to me too," I said. But it wasn't the body thing that was creeping him out. He found out about Pierce and the big cruise I had planned, and he was furious and hurt. He demanded that we switch back our bodies, and he said he would finish the project by himself. I tried to tell him my side, but I didn't really have a point. We went back to reverse the body swap, and when I woke up in my own body in my own bed, I felt relief. I thought about how easy my life was compared to Shane's. I didn't have to work any jobs or take care of anyone else. I had a lot of blessings I hadn't counted. I heard a honk outside my apartment. Pierce was standing outside by a limousine. He had flowers and champagne ready to sweep me off my feet and take me on the cruise. But I was thinking about Shane and how he had to feed his brothers and sisters, and how he had to do the whole project on his own. Our whole relationship, I thought about what he could do for me, but I never asked myself what I could do for him. There's this saying out there that's kind of funny, but so true. Keep your eye on the donut, not the hole. It's easy to complain about everything you don't have, but if you're so focused on the hole, you can't see all the good stuff around it. I turned down Pierce's invitation and brought breakfast over to Shane's house instead. He was surprised to see me, and I thought I could help him out a little bit. Shane was touched and said maybe he was a little hasty with the breakup. We agreed to give things a fresh start, and I decided I was going to be more optimistic this time around. Have you ever taken somebody for granted? tell us about it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.